what is the role of the producer in the modding era? What is the role of the producer in the modding? What exactly does a producer do?
I like the fact that she said in the modern era, because being a producer it's is basically so many jobs into one, right? So streamlining it to music basically is someone who actually takes up a project. It can be 10 songs, it can be one song, it can be even half a song, and takes the idea of the artist. It can be also without vocal, basically. But whoever is, let me put it in the modern era, as you said, whoever is contracting you to do whatever you have to do, you're taking a person's ideas and putting it on the table and adding your musicality to it, your musicianship to it, your creative ideas to it, and also directing that project, basically. It shouldn't be just the musicality of it. That I'm putting shakers here, I'm putting snares here, I'm putting kicks here, or I'm putting chords here. It's not just that, you know. And we should also see that being a producer is also someone who's foreseen the beginning and the end of that particular song or project. Without the modern era in there, a producer basically was the one who was behind the boards, bringing the musicians into the studio, doing a budget, because those days there were labels. They handled everything, right? So you have that, they are taking care of every single thing. Who is the right guitarist to play on this song? Who is the right bassist to play on this song? Who's the right drummer to play on this song? Who is the best engineer to record this? Who's the best engineer to mix? Who's the best engineer to master? They're taking care of every single aspect of this thing, right? So right now it's just metamorphosed into one person doing everything, right? Because there's a digital era now, you know. So we need to understand the beginning part of it, how it's actually transcended into the modern era, you know. And definitely, computers are making things easier for us now. So yeah, you can even produce on your phone, you know. So yes, for me that's it. Yeah.
I don't know what else to add to it, but I feel like it would be me saying that a key quality to that is the adaptability of the producer. That's one key quality, because things are ever evolving, ever changing, and it's more or less the producer's job to make sure they're not necessarily ahead of the curve, but they have something to pioneer at the end of the day. Because every producer's hallmark would be their sound primarily, yeah, but also the textures, feels, moods, and rollout behind that. So the more the more inclined the producer is to handling a rollout, the better for him, because they know that, okay, they can go to him for this aspect of the rollout. They could go to him for that aspect of the rollout, or this aspect of the musicality, or other variables that pertain to the whole production process. So I think adaptability is a key factor that should be considered, because how are you going to stay ahead of the curve or have something to pioneer if you can't adapt to understand or know what people are drawn to feel? So yeah, I think that's the other thing I'll add to it.
In the last few years, I would say, I've come to see the role of a producer as a facilitator. You know, it's essentially your job to, at least in my purview, to essentially understand the artist, understand where they're trying to go, and tease out that, right? So while in the past producers have had to shape people's sounds and be the architects of what the person should be doing, I've grown to understand that there's been a situation where, or there's been a shift where artists now have an idea of where they're trying to go. And sometimes what they need is that person who has the foresight, has the knowledge, has the ears, has the bank of knowledge in music and other subjects really to tease out that information. So I've come to see the role of a producer as one who facilitates an artist's growth rather than it being the producer shaping an artist's sound. Yeah. Which is why that ties in with adaptability. Like a producer is someone who is able to step outside of the artist's world and say, okay, this is where we can go, or this is what we can do. And part of that requires you having a backbone to be able to tell the artist your mind, and essentially say, okay, I don't think this is as good as we think it should be. This is how we can make it better. So I've grown to see the role of a producer as one who facilitates an artist's growth and trajectory more than anything. Yeah.
In Ghana, the executive producer or the financier of a project was referred to as the producer because that was a fail-safe mechanism through which they could recoup their investment. So that's actually an error. And a bit of that mindset still exists today. So we have internalized this thing where, or a record producer or is a producer, and people expect that you actually fund projects. But in actual fact, especially in the 60s, in the 50s, 60s, and the 70s, and from the early to the mid 80s, a majority of those who were referred to as producers were actually executive producers or financiers. And the producers were referred to as engineers. Yes. Because the role of a producer is actually to direct a project. So for many modern type music, where the person who makes a majority of the creative decisions when writing or arranging the music is doing a bit of... So basically, the modern day producer is actually doing 3 or 4 things at the same time. He's producing, he's arranging, he's composing, and sometimes engineering. You understand? And this is the hybrid that is prevalent today, especially in our space and elsewhere, just because of the nature of the way music is primarily composed or made today, on laptops. So the person behind the laptop, he has this idea for a beat, he puts it together, you are actually composing and writing music. And then you're arranging and you're producing because you have this idea that, okay, this section will be perfect for like a verse. This section will be perfect for a chorus, so on and so forth. So the hybrid type production workflow is what is most common in our space for a number of reasons. The lack of funding, because sometimes it gets like super expensive for you to find a dedicated engineer. Because if things were to work perfectly well, you would want a different person to record you. Yeah. You'd want a different person to mix. You'd want a different person to master. Primarily because a different set of ears would bring less bias. There's something called demoitis. Okay, the longer you spend time with a piece of music, you lose objectivity. There's certain things you can hear. So it's very common. And there's nothing wrong with people doing a lot of things at once. I do it primarily because I realize that a lot of people who I would potentially have to send my material to were less skilled than I was. So it was more a means to an end, not a perfect way of working. But over the years, I know like 2 or 3 people where, and I work really slowly, primarily because I have the luxury to, for whatever reason. But the longer you detach yourself from a piece of work, the more likely you are to hear like certain glitches or errors that you'd fix. So it takes time, it takes very deliberate training to be able to think objectively and subjectively, to take yourself from, to detach yourself from the piece of music, even though you're attached to it, to make the right decisions that serves the best interest of the music, devoid of your biases. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense.
I would describe myself as a creative producer. I don't think I have the technical skills to be in a studio, like working on someone's album. Nah. In, I think my strengths are with my ears and what I can hear, and just like I love music. I really, really, really love music. And so I'm always listening. But I've discovered that what that tends to translate into is that I'm building a bank of sounds and directions and things and just like creative choices that people make that also influence what I'm making. I don't know that anyone would know there's a Michael Jackson song that influenced Damn. The chords, if you listen closely, you'll hear it. You know, so I think over time, the more and more you listen, you're just building a memory bank of sounds and directions. And I think that's where my strength is, because I don't have the skills. It took me a long time to know what a low pass filter is. I you know, because for me, it's just an emotion I'm trying to capture, you know, and that's been it. Like all these years, I've been trying to make music or making music. It's just like a feeling I'm trying to capture. So I would describe myself as a creative producer. Yeah.
Okay, to first answer the question, the music producer, the creative producer is the one that sees the process from start to finish. I mean, mainly for the musicality, but for all the other aspects too of the music and the rollout. But the audio engineer is the one who makes sure, or basically the same as a technical producer by definition, making sure that the audio excellence is achieved in terms of how it's mixed, mastered, sometimes even arranged, because you find that some audio engineers are gifted in arrangement and shaping it. Some too like to be detached and focus on getting it technically right. You understand? I think the confusion stems from producers being able to do both or getting by doing the audio engineering, because in these 3 stages of my growth as a producer, one, I didn't understand the concept and I couldn't afford it. Then 2, when I could afford it, there was this disconnect because there were some things that were too technical that I wouldn't want to dabble in because of the feel or the aesthetic of the sound I was going for. So I was like, yo, what the hell, let me just do it myself. And spend hours and hours and hours trying to figure it out. Even playing some of the mixes. And I would like to thank Beat Menace because he kind of shaped my understanding of what to look out for at the basic level. You understand? So, but even from your crib at Sakumono, I even walk past there when I go and visit my friends sometimes. Like, we had a full conversation. I even asked, like, I had a question about, like, what are the basic to do? And you even mentioned that even if I'm going to deliver it from mastering, I should make sure there's enough headroom in the mix, because you have to get it how you can because it's expensive. But that shouldn't stop you from producing great music. Till I came across Lucas Walter. That's more or less my 3rd stage of what do you call it, of my 3rd stage of growth as a producer, where he would even do it for me and try and fit it to the aesthetic I was going for, because thanks to the people who more or less guided me, I was able to get mixes that were decent enough for them to understand what I was going for, and they'll preserve that integrity. So the dabbling, dear, like, you're in Accra, you have to dabble in all of them in order for you to survive and create. You understand? So that's where the confusion is. And I wouldn't even say it's a confusion. It's more or less a superpower because, like, we might not be well versed, and there are definitely people who are, like, it's their life. They eat, breathe, sleep engineering. And no disrespect to them, but sometimes we can't afford them. And sometimes we have the disconnect of them seeing our vision. And we also have deadlines to meet. We have fans who want to eat. So sometimes you have to get how you live. And they see that, so they feel like it's so effortless that they mash the two together. Meanwhile, they don't know what it takes. So I think that it's very important that those two are also differentiated so that people also understand that this is what it takes for you to get a great record, and the bag that all we deserve can finally drop. You up?
I I I mean, yeah, like I dabble too, but I think the parts that I enjoy the most, I mean, if you slap me out of bed, the technical part, I would die for that aspect of the job. Um, Cables. I mean, the very, very technical part. Like, yeah, like the connection of things. Like, yeah. And so, because of that, being aside from the studio aspect of the work, I do live sound too. The live sound part of my work is very important to me. And I feel like when I was learning and when I was coming up, it was a way for me to, I actually really understood how parametric EQs work because of live sound. Yes, so I used to, I mean, in church, I'll go and stand by the mixer and I'll be looking at it. The EQ looks weird. There's like high, mid, low, and then there's like a frequency sweeper in the middle for the mids. And it wasn't really, I didn't really understand it. And then I came into the studio and then I went back. And then anytime that time I wasn't really allowed to touch the mixer, just to look at it. So when I take a look at it, I go into the studio, I come back, and then gradually it started coming to me, and I was like, oh, okay. And you know when you are, your brain is in like that mode that things are now becoming clear, and then like there's a rush of knowledge entering your brain, like, aha. So like it made the work very, so because of that, I decided to like still hold on to the very technical aspect. I started with the technical aspect. Along the line, I learned how to play beat here and there. And I think what's actually holding me back on the beat side, the reason why I don't even want people to know that I've played beat before is because I don't play a keyboard. And I mean, I know some people will be like, oh, it's not anything, but it's a big deal for me because, yeah, I mean, I don't know, because for what I want to do and for the kind of music that I used to listen to, yeah, so I don't really, So because of that, I mean, I decided to take a little bit step back, concentrate on the technical aspect. So straight mixing. So, mixing. And mixing has a lot in common with live sound. So it was just the transition was very, very seamless. And it really, really helped me. So like, there are times that, I mean, it's actually for my own psychological well-being too, because it's not that I get bored easily, but I feel like I need that balance. So I spend some time in the studio. I get out of the studio. I go out to go and do live sound. And then I take time off. I come back to the studio. I do my work. Yeah, so I'm a very technical, I classify myself as a technical producer.
Let's talk about the visibility of producers. How are producers being credited presently? And when I say credited, I mean in the technical way, in the legal way,
Please, in Ghana
In the legal way and in the documentation way, as in the media. How is it being done now, and how should it be done, or how would you want it to be done?
I think that's one of the reasons why the the culture of producers putting tags on songs, started. And it didn't start from Africa. It started from the US actually. you know? And this is the thing. Because just tell me, just let's look at this narrative, right? Look at all these big songs that came from the 70s and 80s, or even let's go down. You wouldn't hear a tag because all the paperwork has been properly done. If I go and type this song, who is the composer, it's going to pop up. Even if you go and look at the score books that have been done of popular songs, you see composer, songwriter, arranger. Their names are there. You get it? I feel like in this day and era, nobody has an excuse. You shouldn't even come and stand in front of me. I didn't know. Everything is there. Like, to be honest, like I feel like people are deciding not to learn. It's not like those days you have to go to the library and open a big book and be searching for one particular chapter because you want to learn something. Like you practically take your phone and just type, who did this? Or how can I do this? It will pop up. Like I feel like we've grown up into a lazy generation because of no. It's true. Cause look, all these big actors like outside, right? You see this, even Ed Sheeran got sued. Hold on. It means that something wasn't done right. The person wouldn't have had that courage to even go and sue you. Yo. Oh yeah, Beans Day. But but this is the thing. Like you just need to let people. I think we are all here to learn, right? There'll be something that I wouldn't know that Kuvi will know, or Keso will know, or Edwin will know, right? And I feel like there's one thing I realized in our space as producers. I think it should stop. I'm just chipping this in, right? So we can all learn. Knowledge shouldn't stick to one person. If you really want the whole spectrum of things to grow, in our so-called, in quote, industry, which we don't have one, but yeah, that's the only way we can grow. If we share all these things, if we look out for each other, but it's unfortunate that this is happening, like, with this whole thing, with this question you asked, like, with all this whole thing where, how are producers credited and all these things, right? I can tell you today that some of your A-list artists don't even know what a publishing split is.
You just took everything on the table.
2, they don't know what even publishing is. 3, they don't even know what licensing is. Some don't even have publishers.
Preach.
All right? So, like, what are you trying to tell me? Like, in terms of crediting, only all is streams. Streams is just like a small portion of it.
It's the most insignificant, actually.
Now, Spotify, how much are you getting? Like, so you see, this is what I'm saying. We are deciding not to learn, and that is what's killing us. We do over Sabi. That is what is worrying us in this country, And the only way we can clamp down on this is if we come together as one, and we are all sharing knowledge. You get it?
The production industry is very heavily male-dominated. Why? Why is that, and what can be done to change or improve that?